Hi there, let's get started. This is an original story from Hidden Revenge Family, and it took a turn you truly didn't see coming. Let's get into it.
I paid the last installment on that house 3 days before my sister's promotion party. No one at the party knew that. The villa sat on a quiet hill just outside the base. White stone walls, floor-to-ceiling windows, a kitchen big enough to host a cooking show. Every month for 6 years, half of my paycheck disappeared into that mortgage. Sarah liked to tell people she invested wisely. She never mentioned the automatic transfer that came from my account. That night, the driveway was lined with black SUVs and polished sedans. Officers in dress uniforms stood around holding champagne like they were born with it in their hands. Laughter echoed through the living room. Someone had hired a string quartet. It was dramatic for a promotion to captain, but Sarah had never believed in doing anything quietly. I stood near the back wall in my standard service uniform. Sergeant First Class Elena Morales, Logistics Division, the branch Sarah liked to call the paper pushers. Maya stood beside me, her small hand resting lightly against my sleeve. She wore a simple navy dress and flat shoes. Her hair was tied back neatly. She didn't speak. She rarely did in public. Sarah made her entrance 20 minutes late. Full dress uniform, new captain bars shining under the chandelier, hair perfectly styled, smile calibrated for maximum admiration. She moved through the room like it belonged to her, accepting congratulations, laughing too loud, touching shoulders, holding eye contact, just long enough to feel powerful. Then she spotted us. "There she is," she announced, raising her voice slightly. "My sister." A few officers turned to look. Sarah walked over heels, sharp against marble. "This is Elena," she said, resting a hand on my shoulder like I was a prop. "She works logistics, the bunker type. She's happiest counting boxes somewhere underground." Polite laughter. I gave a small nod. "Good evening." "She's the reason I don't have to worry about boring stuff," Sarah continued. "While I'm out leading troops, she's making sure the printer has paper." More laughter. I met the eyes of a major standing nearby. He looked uncomfortable but smiled anyway. "Rank has gravity, people orbit it." Sarah turned her attention to Maya. "And this," she said lightly, "is her daughter." Maya looked up at her, an expression calm. "Don't worry," Sarah added quickly, waving a dismissive hand. "She doesn't talk. She's basically the silent decoration of the house." A couple of guests shifted awkwardly. Sometimes Sarah continued sipping champagne. "I wonder if there's even a brain in there. But hey, she's cute." The room went quiet for half a second. Then someone forced a chuckle. No one wanted to challenge the newly promoted captain at her own party. I felt Maya's fingers tighten slightly against my sleeve. I crouched down so I was eye level with her. "You okay?" She nodded once. I stood back up. Sarah leaned closer to one of her colleagues. "Elena's always been sensitive," she said, loud enough for me to hear. Motherhood hit her hard. The comment hung in the air. "I've spent 19 years in uniform. I've been deployed. I've coordinated supply chains across 3 countries. I've handled audits that would make junior officers sweat through their shirts. I don't scare easily, but nothing tests your discipline like watching someone mock your child for sport." The quartet stopped playing as catering staff began moving through the room with trays of wine. Sarah watched them for a moment, then looked at Maya. "You know what?" she said brightly. "This will be good for her." I didn't respond. "Maya," Sarah called, bending slightly. "Why don't you help out carry a tray?" "Earn your keep." The words were delivered with a smile. "She's a guest," I said evenly. "She lives here," Sarah corrected, "which means she contributes." I held her gaze. "Come on," Sarah pressed. "It'll build character, or whatever she's capable of building." A few guests avoided looking at us. Maya stepped forward before I could speak again. She walked to the catering table. One of the hired servers hesitated, then handed her a lighter tray with sparkling water glasses. Maya lifted it carefully with both hands. The tray didn't shake. She moved through the room slowly, offering drinks. Some officers took a glass without meeting her eyes. One woman in civilian attire thanked her gently. Sarah clapped once. "See, even the quiet ones can be useful." There it was, not concern, not tough love, just performance. I watched everything. Who laughed, who stayed silent, who looked away. Sarah drifted back into the center of the room, raising her glass. "To sacrifice," she announced. "To service. And to rising above your limitations." Applause. Maya passed in front of her with the tray. Sarah took a glass, leaned down slightly, and whispered something I could still hear from 6 feet away. "If you can't speak, at least don't embarrass me." Maya's posture didn't change. She finished her round and returned the tray without spilling a drop. When she came back to my side, I rested my hand lightly on her back. "You did great," I said quietly. Across the room, Sarah was laughing again, retelling a story about how she dragged her unit through chaos during an inspection. I knew the inspection. I had prepared the supply reconciliation that saved her from disciplinary review. She had never mentioned that part. The mortgage payment confirmation email was still sitting in my inbox. The electricity bill was auto-drafted from my account. The property taxes were in my name. And tonight in the house I quietly paid for my daughter was being treated like hired help. I felt something settle inside me. Not anger, clarity. There's a moment when you realize silence isn't weakness, it's positioning. Sarah caught my eye from across the room and lifted her glass slightly like she had won something. I returned the gesture. If you had spent years being the most competent person in the room while everyone treated you like background furniture, would you finally speak up, or would you wait until the timing made the truth impossible to ignore? Tell me what you would do. I waited until the last guest left before I took off my uniform jacket. The house was quiet again, catering staff gone, glasses half empty on the counter, the string quartet packed up like none of it ever happened. Sarah had already gone upstairs, still on the phone, still replaying her own highlight reel. Maya sat at the kitchen island, legs swinging slightly. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded once, then she spoke soft but clear. "She's getting careless." Her voice was steady. Not fragile, not broken, just controlled. Most people assume silence means inability. It doesn't. In our case, it meant strategy. Maya isn't mute. She hasn't been for years. When she was sick, she overheard something she wasn't supposed to hear. Sarah arguing with a man about money. Raised voices. Words like transfer cover it and she'll never find out. When Sarah realized Maya was there, she crouched down, smiled too wide, and said, "If you repeat this to your mother, bad things happen. Children understand tone better than vocabulary." Maya stopped talking in public after that. At first I thought it was trauma. Therapy helped. But one afternoon during a car ride, she looked at me and said, "If people think I can't talk, they talk more." That was the day I stopped trying to fix her silence. Instead, I taught her how to use it. We turned it into a game. Observation training. I'd point at people in grocery stores and ask later, "What did the man in aisle 3 put in his cart?" She'd answer without hesitation. Details most adults miss. Tonight she slid a small folded napkin across the counter. Inside were tiny scraps of paper, torn edges, numbers, partial account strings. From her office trash, she said. Sarah's office was the guest bedroom upstairs. Ring light, expensive camera, whiteboard filled with investment jargon she barely understood. Crypto had become her latest obsession. She called it diversifying. I called it gambling with extra steps. Over the past 3 years, she had borrowed from me more times than I could count. Just until next month. My bonus is delayed. It's temporary. Temporary turned into patterns. 19 years ago, when we were both applying for the Military Academy scholarship, I scored higher. Physical tests, written exams, leadership evaluation. I had the recommendation letters, the mentors, the file ready. Sarah cried the night results came out. Not because she failed, because she came in second. Mother sat at the kitchen table pressing a tissue to her eyes. "Your sister has presence," she said. "You're strong. You'll survive anywhere." Translation: give it to her. I withdrew my acceptance the next morning. Official reason: family circumstances. Real reason: I was the dependable one. I enlisted instead. Logistics: no spotlight, no medals on stage, just supply chains, contracts, numbers, and responsibility. I became good at it, very good. Quiet units run smoothly because of people like me. Sarah thrived in visible roles, public speaking, strategic planning, the kind of positions that look impressive on camera. Behind the scenes, she struggled with money. She liked status more than stability. Designer handbags, imported wine, investment groups that met in hotel conference rooms, cryptocurrency forums filled with men who called themselves visionaries and spelled loser wrong. When she first asked to borrow $5,000, it sounded temporary. When she asked again 6 months later, I transferred it without comment. I kept records. Every transaction labeled. Date, amount, stated reason. Not because I expected repayment. Because logistics officers document everything. Why didn't you stop helping her? Maya asked once. Because if I didn't, she would crash faster. Because Mother believed Sarah was destined for something bigger. Because I thought loyalty meant endurance. Because I confused responsibility with obligation. Pick one, or all of them. Over time, the amounts increased. 10,000, 15. Short-term liquidity issues. I noticed credit card statements arriving in my name for accounts I didn't open. Authorized user requests I never signed. I froze those quickly. She called it a bank error. I let her believe I believed that. Upstairs, I heard Sarah's voice through the ceiling. No, the transfer cleared. I told you it would. Maya looked at me. She shredded 3 envelopes tonight, she said. One had red print. Final notice. I unfolded the scraps she brought. Interest rates, account balances, partial routing numbers. You're sure? I asked. She nodded. 19 years of being the stable one teaches you patience. It also teaches you patterns. Sarah's spending spikes followed every promotion cycle. Every time she felt behind someone else. Every time a colleague bought a bigger house or a newer car. The villa we were standing in was supposed to be her proof. Instead, it was leverage she didn't know I held. Mother believes Sarah earned everything here. Mother also believes I prefer staying in the background. She's not wrong about the background part. Logistics is invisible until something fails. Then suddenly everyone wants to know who signed the paperwork. I rinsed 2 glasses at the sink. Tomorrow, I said, we keep observing. Maya slid off the stool. Same rules, she asked. Same rules. Don't interrupt, don't confront, collect facts. Silence isn't surrender, it's data gathering. As she walked toward the stairs, she paused. I could have said something tonight, she said quietly. I know, I didn't. I know. She gave a small nod and disappeared upstairs. I remained in the kitchen looking at the reflection of the house lights against the window. 19 years of being the invisible support system. 19 years of letting Sarah shine. 19 years of transferring money quietly so she could maintain the image of control. People think sacrifice is dramatic. It's not. It's repetitive. It's filling out forms at midnight. It's wiring money you'll never see again. It's declining opportunities so someone else can post about theirs. Upstairs, a door closed. My phone buzzed. A notification from the base finance office. Subject line, budget discrepancy review request. It wasn't addressed to Sarah. It was addressed to me. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Logistics doesn't create shortages. It identifies them. And if there was a discrepancy tied to my name, it meant someone had used it. I opened the email, numbers, account codes, a welfare fund allocation marked as withdrawn, authorization signature mine. I never signed it. In the quiet kitchen of the house I paid for, surrounded by the remains of a celebration built on borrowed money, I realized something simple. I hadn't been invisible. I had been convenient. And convenience, when abused long enough, eventually turns into evidence. I drove onto base at 0600 with the email still open in my mind. The sun was barely up. Security waved me through, same routine, same gate. Nothing about the morning suggested anything unusual. That's how financial damage works. It doesn't explode, it accumulates. By 0630, I was in my office. No windows, 2 monitors, locked filing cabinet. The kind of space Sarah once described as a bunker for people afraid of real leadership. I logged into the finance system and pulled the allocation code listed in the discrepancy notice. Welfare Support Fund, Special Needs Dependents. My stomach didn't drop. I don't operate that way. It tightened. Slightly. That fund exists for one reason: to support service members with children who require specialized care, therapy, adaptive equipment, educational assistance. It's audited carefully because misuse is career-ending. I oversee its distribution for our sector. There it was. A withdrawal processed 3 weeks ago. Amount $218,000. Authorized by SFC Elena Morales. My digital signature was attached, perfectly replicated. I leaned back in my chair. There are 2 types of fraud in military finance: sloppy and arrogant. This was neither. It was strategic. The funds had been redirected to a temporary operations allocation under Sarah's command. I opened her unit's expenditure reports. On paper, everything balanced. On paper. But I know where to look. Logistics isn't glamorous, but it teaches you one thing: numbers always leave fingerprints. Line item adjustments. Transfer timestamps. Authorization routing. The transaction had bypassed secondary review because it came from my credential level, which meant whoever did this had access to my authentication pathway, or access to someone who did. I picked up my secure line and called finance control. This is Morales, I said. I need audit trail metadata on transaction 47-Delta-9. There was a pause. Sergeant, that's attached to Captain Whitmore's operational fund. I'm aware. Another pause. We'll flag it for review. Don't flag it, I said calmly. Just send me the raw log. 5 minutes later, it arrived. IP access location, command office terminal, Sarah's building, timestamp 23:08 hours, 3 weeks ago. I was at home that night. I remember because Maya had a mild fever, and I stayed up monitoring her temperature. I printed the log. Then I printed the digital signature comparison. Side by side, it looked identical, but signature software tracks pressure patterns, stroke timing, micro pauses. The replication matched the visual, not the biometric rhythm. Someone copied the image, not the behavior. That's amateur. And Sarah has never been good at details. At 900, I received a call from her office. Captain Whitmore would like to see you. Of course she would. I walked into her command suite at 9:15. Glass walls, clean lines. Her name polished on a metal plate outside the door. She was behind her desk reviewing something on her tablet. She didn't look up immediately. Power move. I stood at attention. At ease, she said finally. I did. She smiled slightly. I heard you requested audit logs this morning. I did. For a fund attached to my unit. For a fund attached to my authorization. Her smile thinned. Let's not make this dramatic, Elena. I prefer accurate. She stood and walked around her desk. You're good with numbers, she said lightly. Not so good with optics. The welfare fund for special needs dependents is missing $218,000, I said. Authorized under my credentials. Redirected to your unit. She tilted her head. Are you accusing me of something? I'm asking how my signature was used from your office terminal at 23:08 hours. Silence. Then she laughed softly. You're serious? Yes. She walked closer. You really think I would steal from a welfare fund? I think someone did. Her eyes hardened slightly. Be careful, she said quietly. You're stepping into areas above your pay grade. This isn't about grade. It's about loyalty. There it was again. Loyalty. I withdrew funds for operational flexibility, she said. Temporary reallocation. The paperwork will catch up. Not from that account, I said. That fund has restrictions. She folded her arms. You're overreacting. Forgery of credentials is not overreaction. Her jaw tightened. Then she shifted tactics. Do you know how this looks? She asked. A senior logistics NCO accusing a newly promoted captain of fraud. I know how unauthorized access logs look. She leaned in slightly. You want to push this, she said softly. Fine. She walked back to her desk and picked up a folder. You've had a stable career, she continued. No major disciplinary issues, but there are concerns. Concerns. She opened the folder. Your daughter, she said. Her condition. I didn't move. There have been questions raised, she continued smoothly, about your capacity to manage both your duties and a child with limitations. She doesn't have limitations. Sarah ignored that. Do you know how custody reviews work within military families when stability is questioned? I did. It would be unfortunate, she said, if someone suggested that your emotional instability given your child's challenges affected your professional judgment. I held her gaze. You forged my signature, I said evenly. She smiled again. Prove it. I placed the printed audit log on her desk. She glanced at it but didn't pick it up. You think that's enough? She asked. I have influence now. Rank, support, you have spreadsheets. I have data, and I have perception. There's a difference. She stepped closer again. Let me make this simple, she said quietly. Drop this. Correct the report. Say it was an internal processing error. Number. Her expression hardened. You're a mediocre mother, she said, voice low, hiding behind numbers. Your daughter can't even speak for herself. My hand stayed at my sides. A child like that, she continued, needs structure, stability, not a mother obsessed with minor discrepancies. Minor. $218,000 from a fund designed to support kids like Maya. If command starts questioning your judgment, she added, they could review your parental fitness. I'd hate for that to happen. There it was, not money, control. You're threatening to challenge my custody, I said. I'm suggesting you stay in your lane. I studied her face. Perfect hair, perfect uniform, Captain bars catching the light, shining outside, rotting underneath. You miscalculated, I said quietly. Her smile flickered. How you assumed I don't document family the same way I document inventory. She didn't respond. I won't correct the report, I continued. I won't withdraw the audit request, and I won't be intimidated by someone who thinks rank erases evidence. Her face tightened. You're making a mistake. No, I said. You already did. I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me, her voice sharpened. If you push this, Elena, I will make sure you regret it. I will use every connection I have to question your fitness as a mother. Do you understand me? I paused at the door. Yes, I said calmly. I understand you perfectly. Then I left. Back in my office, I locked the door and opened a new file. Title Whitmore, Unauthorized Fund, Reallocation. I added the audit logs. Signature analysis. Terminal access records. And a new section, personal risk assessment. If she wanted to escalate this into custody threats, she had just moved it from financial misconduct to retaliation. And retaliation is easier to prove than fraud. I sat back and allowed myself one steady breath. Sarah thought the uniform protected her. But uniforms don't erase paper trails, they just make the fall more visible. I submitted my leave request at 1400 without explaining it to anyone. By 1600, it was approved. By 1700, Sarah had already heard about it. News travels fast when people enjoy it. I was packing a small suitcase when she walked into my room without knocking. Wow, she said, leaning against the doorframe. That was quick. It was scheduled. Sure it was, she crossed her arms. Heard finance flagged something this morning. Guess command didn't love your little audit stunt. I folded a uniform carefully and placed it in the suitcase. You're being sent home, she asked, fake sympathy layered thick. Or just quietly reassigned somewhere less visible? I looked up at her. I'll be gone a few days. She smiled. You should have stayed in your lane. I am. She laughed softly. Right, because desk sergeants get emergency leave for fun. Desk sergeant, paper counter, bunker sister. I zipped the suitcase. She stepped closer. Just so you know, she added, lowering her voice. If this is about that fund, you're overplaying your hand. People with stars on their shoulders don't care about minor reallocations. Stars. She didn't know. At 0400 the next morning, I was on a military transport flight heading toward Geneva. Not commercial, not vacation, secure. I wasn't suspended. I was summoned. General Sterling doesn't schedule casual meetings. He had been my father's commanding officer 15 years ago. After my father died during a logistics oversight mission overseas, Sterling requested to personally handle the estate transition. Sarah was too young to understand what that meant. Mother was too overwhelmed to ask questions. I was 19. I listened. What most people never knew was this. My father had structured his assets through a military trust system designed for fallen officers with foreign holdings, properties, accounts, insurance layers, contingency funds, and a clause. The eldest child with verified clearance and financial oversight credentials would control distribution until both heirs reached 40. That was me. Not because I was older, because I passed clearance reviews. Sarah never applied. She preferred command tracks. I preferred access. When I completed my advanced logistics certification 8 years ago, I was quietly granted oversight authority over multiple veteran trust accounts, including my father's. The combined value exceeded $7 million. Diversified, untouched. Sarah believed father left us very little, because I let her believe that. The Geneva meeting wasn't about the villa, it wasn't about the welfare fund. It was about a flagged pattern inside several legacy trust accounts tied to officers under Sterling's former command, including ours. I landed in the early afternoon. A black sedan met me at the airfield. No insignia, no conversation. The secure facility sat near the outskirts of the city. Neutral building, heavy security. General Sterling looked older but not weaker. Sergeant Morales, he said as I entered. Sir. He gestured for me to sit. You've been busy, he said calmly. I prefer prepared. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were transaction summaries from multiple military trust accounts. Unusual inquiries, access attempts, routing requests originating from domestic terminals. One of them was linked to our regional command. Another linked to a private financial advisory group, Sarah's group. You're aware Sterling said that someone has been probing restricted accounts. Yes, sir. And that your sister recently received promotion authority. Yes, sir, he studied me. You understand the gravity if someone attempted to breach a fallen officer's trust. I do. He leaned back. You were recommended to oversee these accounts because you're methodical, because you don't seek attention. Yes, sir. You also understand that if a beneficiary attempts unauthorized access, we are obligated to initiate criminal review. Beneficiary. Sarah. She didn't know the accounts existed, but she knew father once mentioned foreign holdings. Loose memory, dangerous, curiosity. She's reckless, Sterling said. But we don't act on assumption. I don't either. He nodded once. Which brings me to the second issue. He tapped another document. The welfare fund discrepancy. I kept my expression neutral. We cross-reference internal misuse patterns against external trust probes, he continued. Your name appeared twice. My credentials were used without authorization. We verified biometric mismatch. Of course they did. However, he added this escalates beyond local command. He closed the folder. Sergeant, if your sister is involved in financial manipulation at both operational and legacy levels, we are no longer discussing family conflict. I understand. He held my gaze. This becomes federal. Silence filled the room. Then his secure phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen and answered, Yes. Pause. Put it through. He placed it on speaker. A controlled voice spoke. Sir, we received the file. Sterling looked at me. What file? He asked. The audio recording, the voice replied. Submitted under encrypted civilian channel. Sterling's eyes shifted slightly. Source? He asked. Verified minor dependent under Sergeant Morales. My pulse didn't spike. It sharpened. The voice continued. Sir, her daughter submitted an audio recording from the night of the promotion party. Timestamp aligns with preliminary misconduct review. Sterling looked directly at me. Sergeant, he said slowly. Were you aware your daughter recorded something? No, sir. The voice on the line added. The recording includes statements indicating knowledge of unauthorized fund transfer and intent to redirect blame. Silence. Sterling ended the call. He didn't speak immediately. Then he said quietly, Your daughter is more strategic than most officers I've trained. I allowed myself the smallest breath. She learns quickly. He nodded once. You understand what this means? Yes, sir. This is no longer internal review. This is investigation. He closed the folder and stood. For now, he said, you return home. Continue as normal. Do not alert your sister. I won't. And Sergeant, yes, sir. If she threatens custody again, document it. I already have. A faint smile touched his expression. I suspected. As I left the facility, my secure phone buzzed. Unknown number, I answered. A calm female voice spoke. Sergeant Morales. Yes, this is military oversight. We need to confirm something. Go ahead. Your daughter submitted an additional clip this morning. It appears to contain discussion about staging a missing funds report to implicate you. I stopped walking. Staging, I repeated. Yes, Sergeant. Did you authorize any such action? Number, pause. Understood. The call ended. I stood on a quiet Geneva sidewalk and understood something clearly. Sarah didn't just misuse a welfare fund. She tried to build a narrative, frame me, control perception. She believed rank would shield her. She forgot oversight doesn't wear medals, it reads files. And somewhere back home, my silent daughter had decided the game was moving to the next level. I landed just after midnight and drove straight home without calling anyone. The house lights were off except for Sarah's office upstairs. The ring light was still on. Of course it was. When I opened the front door, the first thing I noticed wasn't noise. It was space. My desk in the corner of the living room was gone. Maya's bookshelf was missing. The small therapy equipment set we kept near the window had disappeared. In their place were stacked boxes labeled in black marker storage. I stepped further inside. On the kitchen counter, under a crystal paperweight shaped like a star, was a folded sheet of paper. I unfolded it. Elena, since you're clearly unstable and under review, it's best for everyone if you and Maya temporarily relocate to the old storage quarters near the decommissioned base. We need the extra room for Sarah's professional live stream operations. This house cannot function around negative energy. Signed, Mother. No date, no discussion, no request. A relocation notice. I stood still for a full 10 seconds. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs. Mother came down first. Martha Morales. still wearing her house robe like she owned the place. "Oh," she said, surprised. "You're back already, yes." She looked uncomfortable for half a second, then composed herself. "We thought it would be better this way." "Better for who?" "For Sarah," she said immediately. "Her career is rising. She needs space, exposure. Her live stream platform is gaining traction." I set the paper on the counter. "You moved my daughter's things. It's temporary." "Where is she?" "In the guest room," she said. "Packing." I walked upstairs, without waiting. Sarah's office door was open. Inside, new acoustic panels had been mounted on the wall. A larger camera setup sat on a tripod. A neon sign leaned against the desk. Captain Whitmore Live. The guest room across the hall was open. Maya was folding her clothes carefully into a suitcase. She looked up when I entered. "You got the letter?" she asked calmly. "Yes." She zipped the suitcase and set it upright. "They said we're moving to the old storage housing near Base 3, she said. "The one they stopped using 5 years ago." "I know the one. Small, concrete, no insulation upgrades. Technically still functional, but barely." Sarah appeared behind me. "Before you start acting dramatic," she said, "this is practical." I turned slowly. "You evicted my daughter while I was overseas." "You were under investigation," she corrected. "And I can't risk instability affecting my public image." "Your public image?" "Yes." Mother stepped into the hallway. "Sarah's audience expects professionalism," she added. "And with the rumors circulating—" "What rumors?" I asked. Sarah shrugged. "That you're mismanaging funds. That command is reviewing your credentials." She watched my face carefully. I didn't react. "You see," she said to Mother, "this is what I mean. No emotion, it's unnatural." Maya continued packing. Sarah leaned against the doorframe and looked at her. "You should be grateful," she said lightly. "That storage place is quiet. Perfect for someone who doesn't talk." Maya didn't respond. Sarah stepped closer. "If you can't speak," she added, voice sharper, "you don't really have ownership over space in this house. Space is for people who contribute." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "She contributes more than you realize," I said. Sarah smiled. "Oh, by staring at walls." Mother sighed. "Elena, don't escalate this. Just take some time away. Let Sarah build her platform. She's close to monetization thresholds." Monetization. At 100 in the morning in a house I paid for, I was being told to move out so my sister could upgrade her streaming setup. "Who authorized this?" I asked calmly. Sarah crossed her arms. "I did." "You don't own this property." She didn't blink. "You're not exactly in a position to challenge that." There it was again. Assumption, narrative, control. Maya lifted her suitcase and placed it near the door. "I packed everything important," she said quietly. I looked around. Not everything. On the small desk in the corner, her tablet was still there, screen on, unlocked. I noticed it immediately. File open, title visible from across the room. Toi Loi Quadaiwi Sarah. Sarah doesn't read Vietnamese well. Mother doesn't either. They wouldn't recognize the title. But I did. Captain Sarah's Crimes. Maya walked past us with her suitcase. Sarah didn't notice the tablet. She was too busy watching my face. "You should have stayed invisible," she said softly. "You were good at it." I stepped into the room and picked up the tablet casually. "You're making this bigger than it needs to be," she added. "No," I said evenly. "You are." Mother folded her arms. "We're not discussing this further tonight." "You already decided without me," I replied. "Yes," Mother said firmly. "Because someone has to think about the family's future." "Family?" I looked at her carefully. "When you asked me to give up the academy slot," I said calmly. "Was that for the family's future?" Her expression tightened. "This isn't the same." When I covered Sarah's debt payments the first 3 times, I continued, "Was that for the family?" Sarah's eyes narrowed. "What debt?" Mother asked sharply. "Ask her," I said. Sarah's voice hardened. "Don't start." "I'm not starting," I replied. "I'm documenting." Mother looked between us. "This is exactly why you need space," she said to me. "You're becoming hostile." Hostile because I asked questions. Maya reached the bottom of the stairs and waited. Sarah straightened. "You have until tomorrow afternoon," she said. "After that, I'm changing the security codes." I held her gaze. "Go ahead." She blinked. "You think I won't?" "I know you will, because she always escalates too far." That's her pattern. Mother walked back toward her bedroom. "Let's all calm down," she said over her shoulder. Sarah turned to go back into her office. I remained in the guest room for a moment. I looked at the tablet screen. The file wasn't just a title, it was organized. Audio clips labeled by date, screenshots of transaction confirmations, photos of shredded financial notices reconstructed. Maya hadn't just observed. She built a case. I picked up the tablet and turned off the screen. Then I carried the suitcase downstairs. As we reached the front door, Sarah called out from the hallway. "Oh, and Elena." I paused. "Try not to embarrass us wherever you end up." I didn't answer. Outside, the air was cold and quiet. I placed the suitcase in the trunk. Maya stood beside me. "You saw the file," she said. "Yes. I left it open on purpose." "I know." She looked at the house. "She thinks I don't understand what she's doing. She underestimates everyone." Maya gave a small nod. "She'll open it," she said calmly. "Soon." I looked back at the dark windows of the villa. This wasn't eviction. It was overconfidence. And overconfidence leaves fingerprints. I closed the trunk gently. Then I got in the car and drove toward the old base housing, already calculating the next move. I slept 4 hours in the old base housing and woke up clear. The storage quarters were exactly how I remembered. Concrete walls, metal-framed beds, functional plumbing. No decoration, no performance, just structure. Maya was already up sitting at the small fold-out table with her tablet open. She checked it, she said, without looking up. The file, yes. Opened at 2:17, scrolled for 6 minutes. I nodded once. Did she delete anything? No. She took photos of the screen with her phone. Of course she did. Sarah never deletes. She reacts. I washed my face in cold water, put on a clean uniform, and opened my briefcase. 300 pages. Printed audit trails, signature analyses, trust account access attempts, bank transfer histories, screenshots of Sarah's crypto withdrawals lining up with missing operational funds. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to threaten. Auditors don't argue. They present. By 0900 I was back on base, not to confront her, to formalize process. First stop, finance. "I need to update payment authorizations," I told the clerk. "Which one? Sargent Property Mortgage account ending in 4427. Utility auto draft accounts attached to that property. Internet service, insurance," the clerk typed. "All of these are under your primary authorization. I'm aware. You want to modify them? I want to suspend automatic payment effective immediately." She hesitated. "Is there an issue?" "Yes." She processed the request. "Mortgage payment scheduled for next week suspended. Electricity suspended. Water suspended. Internet suspended. Home insurance suspended. Everything that kept that villa functioning ran through my account." Sarah believed the house was hers because she hosted parties in it. Ownership is less glamorous than that. Ownership is paperwork. Next stop, bank. I sat in a quiet office with a compliance officer I've worked with before. "I need to report a card as compromised," I said. "Which one? Prestige Visa ending in 9903. He pulled it up. "Primary holder Elena Morales. Authorized user Sarah Whitmore." "Yes." "You're reporting fraud?" "I'm reporting unauthorized use and potential misrepresentation of ownership." He studied the transaction list. Luxury boutiques, high-end restaurant charges, streaming equipment purchases, private investment transfers. "Do you want the account frozen?" "Yes." "An investigation opened?" "Yes." He typed for a full minute. "Card is deactivated," he said finally. "Authorized user access revoked. Fraud review initiated." "Good." He looked at me carefully. "Family, yes." He nodded slightly. "Those are the worst cases." By 1100, I was walking into the core leadership building. Sarah was scheduled to present budget projections to senior officers at noon. Perfect timing. I didn't enter the conference room. I didn't need to. At 12:17, my phone vibrated. "Unknown number," I answered. A tense whisper. "What did you do, Sarah?" "I updated financial authorizations," I replied calmly. "You froze my card." I froze my card. "You humiliated me in front of command." I wasn't in the room. Her breathing was sharp. "They called me mid-presentation," she snapped. "Said my card was flagged for fraud. In front of everyone. I'm sure that was uncomfortable. You think this is funny, no?" Silence for half a second. "You're sabotaging me. I'm protecting myself. That card is how I manage operational networking. That card is attached to my name." She lowered her voice. "Reinstate it." "No, you're being emotional. I haven't raised my voice." She inhaled slowly, trying to regain control. "Fine," she said. You want to escalate? Let's escalate. I already documented everything, I replied. You think your spreadsheets scare me? No. Federal charges might. Silence. Then she changed tactics. The house, she said. You suspended payments. Yes. You can't, I can. You live there? Not anymore. Her breath caught slightly. You're bluffing. I filed change of residence at 0830. Another silence. You'd risk foreclosure. I'd rather liquidate than subsidize theft. Her tone sharpened. You're destroying the family over paperwork. I'm responding to fraud. You don't have proof. I have logs. She lowered her voice again. You're forgetting something. What's that? I outrank you. Rank. The last refuge. Rank doesn't override financial law, I said evenly. You're a bitter desk sergeant, she snapped. You always have been. This is jealousy, if that helps you sleep. You think command will side with you over me? I think command sides with evidence. She went quiet. Then she tried the old weapon. You're unstable, she said. You uprooted your child. You're isolating her in a storage unit. I relocated her from an unsafe environment. Unsafe, you threatened her. I disciplined her. You told her she doesn't deserve space. She doesn't speak. She observes. Sarah exhaled sharply. Fix the card, she said again. Now. No, you're weak, she said. I almost smiled. Weak. That's what she calls anything she doesn't understand. I gave you 19 years of support, I said calmly. That ended this morning. You owe me. For what? For carrying this family's name publicly. I carried it quietly. That doesn't count. It does in court. Silence stretched. You won't win, she said finally. I'm not trying to win. I'm trying to stop losing. She hung up. At 12:26, I received a fraud confirmation email. Case number assigned. Preliminary review scheduled. At 12:41, a notification arrived from the mortgage lender. Payment missed alert scheduled. Good. Pressure exposes structure. At 13:10, Maya texted me from the storage housing. She went live early. I opened the link. Sarah sat in her newly upgraded office, smile tight. Sometimes she was saying to her audience, people in your life resent your growth. Comments scrolled. She adjusted her posture. Financial misunderstandings happen, she added casually, but strong leaders don't let negativity derail them. Then her phone buzzed on the desk. She glanced down. Her expression changed. Not dramatic, subtle, eyes scanning, color draining slightly. She tried to continue speaking. Anyway, as I was saying, another buzz. She swallowed. The live stream chat noticed. Everything okay, Captain? Someone typed. She forced a smile. Yes, just a small banking error. A third notification. She stopped mid-sentence, because this time it wasn't a card alert. It was a compliance notice. Investigation pending. I closed the live stream. Then I opened the 300-page file on my desk. No anger, no tears, just sequence. People call me weak because I don't shout. They confuse restraint with surrender, but restraint is how you gather leverage. And once leverage is in place, you don't swing wildly. You apply pressure exactly where it counts. I walked into Corps headquarters at 1800 with the file under my arm and no intention of raising my voice. The event was already in full motion. Senior officers in dress uniforms, civilian partners, donors, media personnel near the entrance. It was one of those polished evenings designed to project strength and unity. Sarah loved these spotlight environments. She stood near the center of the main hall, Captain bars shining under overhead lights speaking to a small circle of commanders. Her posture was perfect, confident, controlled. As soon as she saw me, her jaw tightened for half a second before she replaced it with a smile. She excused herself from the group and walked toward me. I didn't think you'd show up, she said lightly. I was invited. She glanced at the folder in my hand. You bring homework to social events now, I bring documentation everywhere. She leaned closer. You picked an interesting week to escalate. You scheduled this event, I replied. Not me. She studied my face, searching for cracks. I heard about the fraud inquiry, she said quietly. You made quite a scene with the bank. I filed a report. You embarrassed me. You misused my name. Her smile disappeared. Not here, she muttered. We're not doing this here. You approached me. She straightened and raised her voice slightly, just enough for nearby officers to notice. My sister, she announced, is going through a difficult period. Stress can affect judgment. A lieutenant colonel looked at me with polite curiosity. I'm functioning normally, I said calmly. Sarah placed a hand on my arm as if guiding me. Let's step into the side office, she said, tone tight, but smiling. I allowed it. The side office door closed behind us. No audience now, just rank and history. She dropped the smile immediately. You've gone too far, she said. You forged my signature. You can't prove intent. I don't need intent for access logs. She exhaled sharply and pulled a thin document folder from her bag. Fine, she said. Let's simplify this. She opened it and slid a paper across the desk. Property transfer authorization. Not for the villa, for the remaining family estate holdings. Our father's name printed at the top. You sign this, she said, and we end this quietly. I didn't touch it. You think I don't know there's more, she continued. You always had access to the paperwork, the trust accounts, the overseas assets, so she finally connected the dots. You've been sitting on inheritance control, she said, eyes sharp, and you never disclosed it. I followed the trust conditions. You exploited them. I qualified. She leaned forward. You're a senior non-commissioned officer, she said, voice cutting. A desk sergeant. You think you deserve control over assets meant for leadership? They weren't assigned based on ego. They were assigned because you manipulated clearance timing. I earned clearance. She laughed once. You hide behind technicalities. I operate within rules. That's why no one notices you. I held her gaze. I don't need to be noticed. She picked up the paper and tapped it. Sign it, she said. Transfer equal control to me. We split everything evenly. No investigations, no charges. I'll make some calls and smooth the fund review. There's no smoothing federal oversight. There is when you know the right people. I almost smiled. She still believed influence overrides structure. You're not in control of that investigation, I said. Her expression flickered. I have support. You have exposure. Her jaw tightened. Look at yourself, she snapped suddenly. A middle-aged sergeant clinging to paperwork and a child who won't speak. You're not the face of this family. You're its liability. I didn't respond. She stepped closer. You and that silent daughter of yours, she continued, voice rising slightly, are a stain on our name. A weak mother and a defective child. There it was, the last attempt to destabilize me. 2 embarrassments standing in uniform, she added. That's what you are. I let the silence sit. Then I smiled slightly. Rank is a costume, Sarah, I said calmly. Integrity is what keeps you out of prison. Her face changed. Not dramatically, subtle. The confidence thinned. You're bluffing, she said, but the edge was gone. No, she studied me carefully. What did you send to Sterling everything? Her pupils narrowed. You wouldn't. I already did. Silence filled the office. You think you're untouchable because you finally found leverage, she asked. I think you miscalculated your opponent. She picked up the transfer paper again. You sign this, she repeated, quieter now. Or I push custody review. You already tried that. I'll escalate. With what instability claims? You threatened my child. I disciplined her. You intimidated a minor witness. Her breathing shifted slightly. You're not recording this, she said suddenly. No. Then it's your word against mine. Not exactly, her eyes searched my face. You think you're clever, she said. You've always thought that. I think you underestimate risk. She moved toward the door. Last chance, she said without turning around. Sign it. No, she opened the door. The sound of the event returned instantly. Music, laughter, conversations. She stepped out first, smile reassembled. I followed. As we walked back into the hall, a senior officer approached her. Captain Whitmore, he said we need a word. She kept smiling. Of course, sir. He glanced at me briefly. Sergeant Morales, sir. Another officer joined them, then another. The formation wasn't casual, it was structured. Sarah noticed. Her smile didn't disappear, but it froze. Is there an issue, she asked lightly. We've received additional documentation regarding fund irregularities, one of them said evenly. And unauthorized credential access. Her posture stiffened slightly. That's a misunderstanding, she replied. We'll determine that. Her eyes flicked toward me. For the first time that evening, uncertainty moved across her face. Not panic, not yet. Just the realization that control had shifted. She tried to laugh softly. This is absurd. One of the officers gestured toward a private conference room. Captain, please. She hesitated for half a second. Then she walked. I didn't follow. I didn't need to, because the build-up phase was over. And when someone's entire power structure is built on appearance, it only takes one crack in the uniform for the color to start draining from their face. I stayed near the back of the hall while they escorted Sarah into the conference room. I didn't chase. I didn't argue. I didn't hover outside the door. I waited. Events like this always have a stage segment. Speeches, recognition, public messaging about honor and unity. The program had already been delayed 15 minutes. Whispers moved through the crowd. At 19:10, one of the coordinators approached me. "Sergeant Morales," she said quietly, "your daughter is here." I didn't react immediately. She insisted, the coordinator added. She said she was invited. Invited, I turned toward the entrance. Maya stood just inside the doorway, wearing the same navy dress from the party weeks ago. Calm posture, tablet in her hands. She walked toward me without hesitation. "You weren't supposed to come," I said quietly. "I know. How did you get in?" I showed them the email confirmation. "What email?" "From Oversight, of course." I looked past her. Two plainclothes officials stood near the wall, not blending in very well. "Maya," I said carefully. "This isn't I'm done being quiet," she replied. Her voice was steady, clear, not loud, not dramatic, just firm. Before I could respond, the master of ceremonies stepped onto the stage and adjusted the microphone. Due to a brief administrative delay, he said we'll proceed with our scheduled remarks. He began introducing senior command. Then the side door opened. Sarah re-entered the hall. Her posture was controlled, but the shine was gone. Her smile looked thinner. One of the officers remained a few steps behind her. She spotted Maya immediately. Confusion flickered across her face, then irritation. She moved toward us. "What is she doing here?" Sarah asked under her breath. "Standing," I replied. Sarah crouched slightly toward Maya. "You shouldn't be here," she said sharply. "Go back." Maya didn't move. The master of ceremonies continued speaking on stage, unaware. Sarah leaned closer. "You're not helping your mother," she whispered. Maya looked at her directly. Then she stepped past her, straight toward the stage. I didn't stop her. Neither did the officials near the wall. Maya climbed the small steps to the platform. The speaker paused, confused. "I'm sorry," he said into the microphone. "We have Maya reach for the mic." And took it. The room quieted. She adjusted it slightly downward. Then she spoke. "My name is Maya Morales," she said clearly. "I am not mute." The sound carried cleanly through the hall. A ripple moved across the crowd. Sarah froze. "I stopped speaking in public." Maya continued because Captain Sarah Whitmore told me that if I repeated what I saw, she would hurt my mother. Silence. Not polite silence, real silence. Sarah's mouth opened slightly. "That's not," she started. An officer near her raised a hand gently. "Let her finish." Maya held the microphone steady. "I saw her remove restricted documents from my grandfather's locked case 3 years ago," she said. "I saw her photograph them and email them to a private account." Sarah's breathing changed. "I also saw her shred financial notices when crypto investments failed." Maya continued. "And I heard her say she would reassign missing welfare funds to make it look like my mother misfiled them." The room shifted. I didn't move. Maya lifted her tablet and tapped the screen. "I kept records," she said. A projection screen behind the stage flickered to life. Oversight officials had connected the feed. Transaction lists appeared. Dates, amounts, routing numbers, each aligned with the missing welfare fund allocation. "I reconstructed shredded documents from her office trash," Maya continued. "I matched transfer timestamps with her live stream equipment purchases." Sarah took a step back. "This is manipulation," she said loudly. "She's a child." Maya didn't look at her. "I also recorded a conversation the night of the promotion party," she said. She pressed play. Sarah's voice filled the hall. "If the fund disappears under Elena's authorization, no one questions a logistics error. She'll take the fall. I'll call it administrative oversight." The audio was clear, not distorted, not edited, just raw. A murmur spread across the room. Sarah's face changed. The color drained slowly, not theatrically, just enough. "That's fabricated," she said quickly. "That's edited." Maya pressed another clip. "She's too quiet to fight back. People already think she's unstable. It's perfect." The microphone picked up Sarah's earlier laugh in the recording, unfiltered. Several officers looked toward her. She looked at me, for the first time not with anger, with calculation, searching for an exit. There's more, Maya said calmly. She tapped again. A video clip appeared on the projection screen. Not high quality, but clear enough. Sarah inside her office, late night, alone, holding a document folder, speaking into her phone camera. If they audit the fund, I'll report it missing and point to Elena's access log. She's predictable, always follows procedure. That's her weakness. The clip ended. Silence. Heavy. Then footsteps echoed from the side entrance. General Sterling walked into the hall. No announcement, no applause, just presence. He stepped forward slowly. Captain Whitmore, he said evenly. Sarah turned toward him. Her posture collapsed slightly. Not physically, structurally. Sir, she said, voice tight. Your access to all command systems is suspended effective immediately, he continued, pending formal investigation. She looked around. No one was smiling now. This is political, she said. You're taking a child's word over mine. Sterling's gaze shifted briefly toward Maya. Evidence does not have an age requirement, he replied. Sarah's lips parted, but no argument came out, because the projection screen still displayed transaction summaries, still displayed timestamps, still displayed her own recorded words. She looked smaller, not because of rank, because illusion had collapsed. She had built her authority on image. Image doesn't survive documentation. Sterling turned slightly. Escort Captain Whitmore, he said quietly. Two officials stepped forward. Sarah's face went pale, not dramatic, not exaggerated, just drained, like someone who finally realized the performance was over. She looked at me one last time. You did this, she said. No, I replied calmly. You did. Maya handed the microphone back to the stunned coordinator. Then she stepped down from the stage and walked toward me. The hall remained silent. Not out of fear, out of recalibration. People were adjusting their understanding of who held control. Maya slipped her hand into mine. You're not mad, she asked quietly. No. You didn't tell me to stay quiet. I never asked you to, she nodded once. Across the room, Sarah was being escorted out. Her uniform still perfect. Her rank still visible, but without authority behind it. And for the first time in years, the silence in the room belonged to us. Not because we were invisible, but because the truth had finally spoken. I watched them escort Sarah out of the hall and didn't feel victory. I felt completion. Investigations move fast when the evidence is organized. Within 48 hours, her access was permanently revoked. Within a week, formal charges were filed: fraud, unauthorized, fund reallocation, falsification of credentials, and breach of trust related to restricted financial accounts. 10 years was the projected maximum sentence under military and federal review. Rank disappeared quickly. The captain bars were removed before the paperwork was even finalized. Public statement released. Internal memo distributed. The live stream channel went dark overnight. People who once commented "strong leaders" switched to silence. I didn't post anything. I returned to work. Same office, same desk, same systems, but this time when I walked through the building, people didn't avoid eye contact. They nodded, not out of sympathy, out of respect. Sarah tried to contact me twice during the first week, through an attorney, then through Mother. I didn't respond immediately, not because I was unsure, because I was measuring impact. The villa went into default within a month. Without my payments, the structure Sarah believed she controlled began collapsing on schedule. Utilities shut off first, then insurance flagged non-payment. Then the lender initiated proceedings. I didn't intervene. Ownership isn't emotional, it's documented. Mother showed up at the base housing 3 weeks after the event. She looked smaller than I remembered, less certain. She stood outside the concrete quarters like she didn't believe I would actually live there. You can't let this continue, she said without greeting. I didn't start it. She's your sister. She forged my signature. She made mistakes. She staged financial theft and tried to frame me. Mother's hands trembled slightly. She's facing prison, she whispered. I know. You have connections, she said. You spoke to Sterling. I presented evidence. You can retract something. No. Her eyes filled with frustration. You've always been stubborn. No, I replied calmly. I've always been consistent. She stepped closer. She needs help, she said. She's not built like you. I looked at her carefully. Years ago at the kitchen table, she said something similar. She needs elevation. You're resilient. That night had shaped everything. You once told me I said evenly that Sarah needed lifting and I was strong enough to survive on my own. Mother's expression tightened. That was different. No, I said. It wasn't. She opened her mouth to argue. I continued. You said she needed support. That I could endure. Silence. So let my endurance carry me forward, I said. Without both of you. Her face changed then. Not anger. Recognition. You'd walk away from your family, she asked. I'm walking towards stability. You're abandoning us. No, I stopped rescuing you. She shook her head slowly. This isn't how family works. I looked at Maya, who was standing a few steps behind me. It is now. Mother's voice softened. She's still your sister. She made choices. She's scared. So was Maya. Mother didn't respond to that. For the first time, she didn't defend Sarah. She's facing 10 years, she said quietly. She should have thought about that before redirecting funds for children. Mother's shoulders dropped. I don't recognize you, she whispered. I finally recognized myself. She stood there for a long moment. Then she left without another word. I didn't feel anger. I felt space. 2 months later, the sentencing recommendation was finalized. 10 years with review eligibility at 7 for cooperation. No rank, no pension, no command future, just consequence. Sarah sent one final message through her attorney. She says you could have handled this privately. I wrote one sentence back. She handled it publicly. That ended it. The villa was liquidated to cover outstanding liabilities. I didn't contest the sale, because I never intended to live there again. What Sarah never knew, what Mother never asked, was that I had been saving separately for 19 years. Small transfers, conservative investments. No risk, no show. Last year, I finalized the purchase of a small lake cabin 3 hours north of the base. Not large, not impressive, but mine. No shared accounts, no co-signers, no assumptions. The day the final legal notice confirmed Sarah's conviction status, I took leave. Maya and I packed our belongings from the storage quarters. Not many boxes. We drove north in silence for the first hour. Then Maya looked at me. You don't look sad, she said. I'm not. You don't look happy either. I'm steady. She nodded. Do you think she hates us? That's not relevant. She looked out the window. Are we still a family? Yes. With who? I glanced at her. With whoever stays when the truth shows up. She considered that. When we reached the lake, the cabin looked exactly how I remembered. Wood exterior, small dock, clean water reflecting afternoon light. No chandeliers, no ring lights, no performance. Just quiet. I parked the car and stepped out. The air smelled different, clean, uncomplicated. Maya walked toward the dock and crouched near the water. No audience, she said softly. No, I replied. She stood and looked back at me. I don't want to be silent anymore. You don't have to be. We carried the boxes inside. Simple furniture, functional kitchen, windows facing the lake. No debt attached. No shared names. I placed the final box down and looked around. 19 years of working in the background. 19 years of being underestimated. 19 years of endurance redirected into structure. People confuse revenge with destruction. This wasn't destruction, it was correction. Sarah lost rank because she believed power protected her. Mother lost proximity because she believed favoritism was love. I lost the illusion that blood guarantees loyalty. But I gained something else, peace without permission. As the sun lowered over the lake, Maya stepped onto the porch beside me. It's quiet, she said. Yes. She leaned against the railing. I like it. So do I. Family isn't defined by shared DNA. It's defined by who stays when the truth becomes inconvenient. Some people stay. Some people perform. And some people fall apart the moment accountability enters the room. I watched the light shift across the water and understood something clearly. Silence was never weakness. It was preparation. And the only legacy worth carrying isn't rank, money, or image. It's the ability to walk away clean when the noise finally dies down. Do you think I should have saved her because she was my sister? Or was walking away the only way to protect what truly mattered? Tell me what you believe. And if you value stories about accountability, resilience, and choosing peace over performance, make sure you're here for the next one. I didn't win because I was louder. I won because I was patient. That's the part people misunderstand. They watched my sister collapse publicly and assumed I had been plotting revenge. I wasn't plotting revenge. I was collecting facts. There's a difference. Revenge is emotional, evidence is structural. For years, people mistook my silence for weakness. They saw a senior non-commissioned officer who stayed in logistics instead of chasing rank. They saw a mother whose daughter didn't speak in public. They assumed we were passive. What they didn't see was positioning. Silence comes in two forms. One is fear. That kind of silence shrinks you. It avoids conflict because it believes it cannot survive it. The other is strategy. That kind of silence listens. It tracks patterns. It waits for timing. I wasn't silent because I was afraid of Sarah. I was silent because she talked too much. Manipulative people reveal themselves constantly. They over-explain, they brag, they rewrite history out loud. They underestimate anyone who doesn't interrupt them. When someone is performing power, they rarely notice who is auditing it. If you're dealing with a controlling family member, a toxic supervisor, or a partner who thrives on intimidation, understand this. You don't need to win every argument. You need to understand their pattern. People who rely on dominance eventually expose their own weaknesses, but only if you're paying attention. That brings me to the second lesson. Documentation beats emotion. You can cry in front of a system. The system will not respond. You can yell about unfairness. The system will not respond. But you present time-stamped logs, transaction records, audio clips, and cross-reference data, and suddenly the system moves. I didn't defeat my sister with anger. I defeated her with organization. Every transfer she requested I labeled. Every suspicious access log I saved. Every thread I recorded in writing. Not because I wanted a courtroom moment, because I understand infrastructure. If you're in a situation where someone is gaslighting you, stop arguing verbally. Start building a file. Save emails, take screenshots, write down dates and times immediately after incidents. Separate your financial accounts as early as possible. Consult a legal professional before you think you need one. You don't build a defense when the crisis hits. You build it quietly beforehand. That's not paranoia, that's preparation. The third lesson was harder. Stop subsidizing disrespect. For years, I told myself I was being supportive. I was helping my sister maintain her career image. I was protecting the family from embarrassment. I was being resilient. What I was actually doing was funding someone who had no respect for me. Support without accountability becomes self-betrayal. If someone consistently borrows money but mocks you publicly, that's not a misunderstanding. That's exploitation. If someone relies on your stability while undermining your credibility, that's not family. That's dependency disguised as loyalty.